So I only started going there in 1987, and it sort of became my second home. And so we'll start off. We're going to go kind of in a chronological order. I had a business trip that took me to Pittsburgh on the 14th of August, 1987. And I thought on my way back to Philadelphia, I'm going to find this mythical place, Sand Patch. And by the time I got there, it was dark. There's no street lights. It's pretty desolate up there. There's no signs of civilization. And then just driving around, and I really didn't know where I was going or what I was going to do or where I could pitch my tent. And then I saw a porch light off in the distance, and it was a white light, and underneath it were two green lights. Yeah. And I thought, no, hold on a second. That's not a porch light. That's a clear signal on the B&O. And so I had stumbled across Manila, and so I on the side of the road there, I in sort of little railroad area in there, which is all gated now. I pitched my tent and woke up the next morning, and this was the first train I saw, a westbound, climbing the grade at Manila. You see the helper pocket in the middle there. It was kind of neat. Haze hasn't burned off yet. It was a neat introduction to railroading at Sand Patch. Of course, there were some trains during the middle of the night too. So, and then I spent the day up there, and saw westbound. This was right around the time when CSX had just kind of assimilated all the predecessor railroads' locomotives into their numbering scheme. So you see this first and the third unit, they already had numbers in the CSX numbering scheme. The middle one hadn't been touched at that point, so that was a sort of a virgin thing. And of course, the SD50s, which they used oftentimes for helpers and stuff, they were delivered in the CSX numbering scheme, lettered B&O and C&O. So here's a westbound train coming out of the tunnel. And I don't believe you can get up in this area anymore, but it was really kind of nice while it lasted. I actually had been up on top of the tunnel portal once or twice during my times there. So this is on the other side of Sand Patches. I think it's eastbound, climbing a hill near Keystone, near the Keystone Viaduct. Same day. Turned out to be a pretty nice day. And then back on the east side of the hill around Foley, Fairhope, that area there, with a westbound in just kind of really nice, perfect light. And of course I came back. And so it was 10 days later, westbound between Glencoe and Filson. And then up at the top, an eastbound at Sand Patch Tower. The guy with the Jeep Cherokee there was the tower operator. I think that's a Cherokee. So we saw a bunch of trains, and I got to know some of the operators up there. I found the best way to introduce myself was to bring a box of donuts in the morning, and when there were leftovers, we'd give them to the section gang and so forth. Here's some helpers or some light engines going west at the tower with the landmark sign of the summit of the Alleghenies. The next morning, sometimes it rained. The next morning, one of the trailer trains, either the Baltimore to Chicago or the Philadelphia to Chicago train at Mance, and a train coming out of the other side of the Sand Patch Tunnel. And I'm not sure, this may still be accessible. It's been many years since I've been back there. Much to my chagrin, it was kind of like a second home for me for a bit of a time there. It was just a 4-hour drive from my house in the Philadelphia area. And I'm sure a lot of you folks, being from the DC area and stuff, it was an easy drive for you guys. So, yeah, here we are on the kind of the horseshoe there at Mance. And in the pouring rain. So I didn't mind. I figured, I'm going to dry off eventually. Take a shower just about every day. This is just like that, except you know what, I had all my clothes on. So, and of course, that landmark barn off on the side of the hill on the right side there, and the so-called general store at Mance with an eastbound vehicle train. We're going to see a couple of westbounds coming out of the Falls Cut Tunnel on another overcast day. It was a great day to watch lizards skitter around and watch the trains. And so here's a westbound, a little bit longer from a different vantage point is another westbound, looking basically straight through the haze of the tunnel, and yet another one with a Capitol Dome locomotive leading, which was a kind of a nice thing. Of course, it had already been renumbered, but still it had to be, blue paint, which was kind of rare at that point. Over the hill at Glencoe, coming down a downgrade train eastbound. Another shot at Manila. This is, I think, a day or so later, or a few days later. I think this is an eastbound, and I believe that signal may have been the one that I had seen in the middle of the night that beckoned me to park there. This train, I think, was picking up coal loads off the Salisbury branch. You see the old Western Maryland viaduct in the background near the Salisbury Viaduct. So on a kind of a icky day. And back then I was shooting a lot of Kodachrome 200, which was kind of grainy and color didn't reproduce really perfectly, but it afforded me an extra stop or two. And I had really awful lenses as well. So I sometimes was actually able to stop down a stop and maybe sharpen things so that you could see a little detail here in 2024.
Nobody's grabbed those glass insulators on the far pole yet.
They may have still been operating at this point in 1987.
I just didn't see wires there yet. Okay.
Yeah, the ones on the other side, there are a few wires there, and on this side as well. So there's a work train going through getting ready to plunge into the tunnel eastbound the next morning, and then a train coming westbound, one of the trailer trains. That was a sort of a regular occurrence. You'd see the two westbound trailer trains, the intermodal trains in the morning, and then and there was plenty of freight that went through there as well. Now, of course, CSX uses the PSR model of railroading, where they run these gigantic land barges, and we have the same problem out here with UP. Tracks that used to see 4 or 5 trains, 6, 8 trains a day, you might have 2. So such is progress, I guess. Then there is Sandpatch Tower with the signal maintainer parked out in front, and an eastbound train cresting the hill right here at elevation of 2,258 feet. Westbound ore train, kind of close to Mance. Yeah, I love the rock formation in the background there, and I like this little smoke coming out of that second unit steam engine climbing the grade here. It's a big, heavy train, and the engineer just sees me standing up there, and he's just kind of casually looking at me, like, well, oh well. So then winter came. February of '88 went out there. There was a little snow on the ground. It was a cold day, but the sun was out, and the sun was low, obviously, that time of year. And look at this, next Clinchfield leading one of the trailer trains. And a little while later, the other trailer train, this is up at Manila. And then this is approaching Sandpatch, I believe, with an eastbound. And then a couple months later, went back, and things, of course, had the snow had kind of all melted by then. Wills Creek there. This is around Foley, Fairhope area. eastbound one morning. You've probably been to or heard of or seen pictures taken from the overlook at Foley. And I think this may have been one of the first pictures taken from this position. At least maybe one of the first pictures published that was taken in this position. I think this actually got published in an edition of CT Seaboard back in the very late 1980s. And of course, then, people started showing up and, making easier access and so forth. But it was kind of a fun thing while it lasted. And and you can still get up there. So that's great. And then here at the tunnel portal, a westbound, like 397 train or 396 or something like that. Something like that. I'm not sure which, but with a somewhat freshly painted CSX unit at the massive Keystone Viaduct, westbound. A month or so later, an eastbound. I believe this is an eastbound, somewhere around Glencoe, I believe. From up on the overlook again. The Capital Limited running a dome and a couple F40s. Those were the days. We got this series of shots. I think this is the westbound Philadelphia to Chicago trailer train. It's funny, a couple days after this, I found myself in Ohio and on a business trip. And here's the same train going underneath the Salisbury Viaduct. A couple days later, I saw the same train in Ohio, and I didn't even realize it until I got the slides back. And I said, "Hey, wait a minute, that number sounds familiar." So, but I wrapped up my thing here on that day. Here with some helpers coming out of the helper pocket up on top at Sand Patch. Kind of a nice day. Another westbound trailer train. What's that, a GP9, the fourth unit? That was kind of unusual even then. And then a automobile, multi-level auto rack train coming down the hill at Foley. Look at that last unit. It's a Pittsburgh commuter F7 or whatever. I think it had some work done to it. That's when they were still running commuter trains in Pittsburgh. It had some maintenance or repairs or inspection or something in Cumberland, and it was heading back for the Monday rush hour. And here it is. So the helpers have dropped off. They're in the pocket there at Sand Patch, and the train is continuing on. And there goes the PA train F unit back to Pittsburgh.
What's that building there?
I think that might be a private home.
Okay.
There's a sawmill back in there as well. You can also, well, at least a few years ago, you could still hear lumber being sawed. So the helpers going down the hill back into the tunnel, and the helpers leading an ore train up the hill with the Wills Creek in the background, burbling along. Very nice little scene.
When you say ore train, is this steel ore, iron ore?
I don't remember. My notes say it was an ore train, and it may have even been empties. I can't tell you. I wish I knew better. My notes say this is an empty grain train. Same day. And some light power heading back towards Heinemann. Yeah, I guess I was there the next morning as well. I do like this little rock formation there. There's not very many of those. I think that might be the only one. Another shot of this is a helper shoving on the rear of the train up the hill at Manila. That previous shot, I'll go back to it. This was the head end of the trailer train, third unit of GP30, and then the helpers on the rear. So there was some tonnage, and they wanted to get it over the hill and expedite, especially the trailer trains. And another grain train, or maybe it's an empty. I'm not sure. So a month or so later, I went back and everything was in full leaf. And again, there's our famous barn up on top of the hill. This is not far from where the guys had put a hot tub on top of the hill, where you could light a fire underneath it and have a warm bath. The Secklers, I think, is their name. Nice people. Eastbound train, back in the glory days of the old B&O, down along Wills Creek. They ran a track geometry train. I guess this was. That's what my notes said, at least. And so it is. Here it is, topping the hill westbound at Sandpatch. You see Sandpatch Tower kind of carved into the side of the hill in the background on the right there. Well, leaves are starting to change color here at the end of September. Westbound trailer train meeting an eastbound right below me. I think the eastbound was stopped. And another general merchandise westbound. Couple of new versions of couple of different versions of the new CSX paint scheme. And that's when they were kind of figuring out how they wanted to look. And the next morning up at Sandpatch Tower, see the operator kind of, leaning out the front of the tower, just doing a roll by on the train. I probably brought him donuts that morning, This was kind of neat. The Capital Limited came through with a brand new AEM 7. Okay, so obviously that dates this. All those things are all retired and into razor blades now, or most of them. And but here was one being ferried east. As far as I know, it was brand new. It might have been rebuilt or something, but I believe this ended up in trains. This was before I started working there as a news photo. Maybe delivery of one of the last AEM 7s. I used to, and they didn't care if you just traipsed up and down the right of way. And so I think that you'd get called into the dispatcher immediately if you were out there trying to take a picture from this angle today. But with all these S curves, it was just a neat place to be. Yeah, you'd walk another 50 feet, you get a different angle. This is the one little area, I think it was called Roddy's Sag, where the grade leveled out for a very short piece, but here you see the train is almost climbing, almost cresting the grade. Well, it's just going into the Sag westbound. Roddy's Sag, it's between Glencoe and Filson, if memory serves me correctly. Another shot of a train up by Mance on the horseshoe curve with an old GE leading. The colors are starting to turn here. Down around Glencoe again. I'm standing in the creek. This was a passenger special. I don't remember who ran it, but they used those Pittsburgh passenger cars when they were still running commuter service. So they appropriated them for this trip. I think it went from Pittsburgh to Cumberland and back. And as you saw, the last unit still painted in Western Maryland, the 6573, which was the CSX number, was leading. And there's that 6573 is the second trailing unit on a westbound trailer train the next month. This is on the west side, west of Garrett and Rockwood and stuff, as I recall. And early January 1989, I was able to get up there a few times because at that point I had gotten laid off from my job, and I was really, there was nothing else I could do except look for a job or take pictures of trains. And naturally, I took the path of least resistance. So this is what I did, and I did it, and the job came later. But the snow was coming down, but the sun was just peeking through here on this eastbound train right around Filson, or NA, I think it might have been. A few days later, westbound train. There had just been a little dusting of snow, and there it is being kicked up. Snow didn't last too long that day. Here's just a little bit later on. Westbound climbing the hill. I guess NA.
Can I ask? I've seen a lot of box cars on these trains, and you don't see
Yes.
many box cars today.
True.
The stuff that was in those box cars, how was that transported today? By truck, in trailers on train? Do you have any idea?
I don't know, but I'm gonna say that probably most of the stuff in those box cars, probably auto parts heading to the auto factories. And
Yeah.
Paul, you have additional information on that?
Well, I was going to say those are auto parts cars. Yeah. And that was probably, they put them on the back of, they put them on the head end of auto rack trains a lot. So, the big double door cars are usually auto parts cars because they're bulky, but they're not that heavy. So to get 100 tons, you can have a pretty big car.
Right. So, yeah, and then to answer the other question, Paul, do you know how that traffic is moving today? I guess not.
I forgot to unmute. The automobile parts traffic is not what it was on CSX. It used to be we would get shutdown cars, and that meant that if the car didn't get there, the factory was going to shut down. So, I took one box car to the Saturn plant in Wilmington one night that absolutely positively had to get there. So, but I honestly, I'll tell you, a lot of those cars are now being used for like appliances, to move appliances to the distribution centers on the East Coast. They come out of General Electric in Kentucky or out of Mexico. There's a big block of those cars on the front of what was Q368. I don't know what it's called now, but those are full of like washers and dryers and refrigerators. So the auto parts traffic, I don't know how it moves, but a lot of it's not moving by train.
All
Right.
Amazon stuff is probably in containers, right?
It could be. It could be.
And of course, a lot of that the suppliers have built factories closer to the remaining automobile manufacturing plants, so they can get their just-in-time inventory that much quicker if it's made right in the area. So here's a westbound climbing the hill going by Foley. If you look at the very top center of the screen, you see that little clearing area. That's that Foley overlook. So here I am for kind of a different down on perspective, a worm's eye view perspective. So next morning, I don't think I was camping that night because there was snow this morning, and I probably stayed in a motel someplace close to donut shop to bring the operator donuts, sand patch. So westbound trailer train in the morning, just like on the advertised, as they say, with a trio of GEs leading, which was sort of unusual during this era, but was something we were going to see more and more of.
Don't see
And
that
then the
glass
other,
brick anymore.
I'm sorry,
I was because they said in that tower, you don't see that glass brick anymore.
no. Another trailer train that same day. That's the Pinkerton Tunnel with the Western Maryland Bridge on the river, over the river there. I believe that's the Castleman River. So this is an eastbound. And Pinkerton, I believe, has been daylighted. Is that correct? pretty sure. Pretty sure. And a couple weeks later, after some ice had encased everything around Sandpatch, westbound trailer train. Kind of a dull, dark morning, but you know, you got to do anything for the shot. You know, I'm not sure. I think this is a eastbound coming down the hill, you know, near approaching Nance, Manila, that area, I believe. Westbound. Now, this is my last trip to Sandpatch. So just a couple more pictures here. This is my last trip to Sandpatch as a Pennsylvania resident, because I believe I was on my way, maybe not this trip, but very shortly thereafter, I left everything behind me in Philadelphia and I moved to Wisconsin when I got the job at Trains Magazine in the advertising department. I started like a day or two after Memorial Day. I remember I started, it was probably about the 30th or 31st of May, in time to get in, get my service in, which started in the first half of the year, which allowed me to get my insurance testing that much quicker. So I don't think I was on my way out west at this point, but I did make one last hurrah, and I think this was my last visit, westbound train, climbing the hill. And that is the extent of what I have for you today. Appreciate everybody's attention, and would be delighted to answer any questions or take any comments or anything.
Thank you, Mike. That was a great show.
A great program.